Welcome to part 2 of IELTS Writing Punctuation, how to score Band 7 Plus for grammatical range and accuracy. In part 1, I showed you 4 simple rules on how to use the comma correctly. This video will be an extension to that video where I show you one more rule on how to use the comma. At the end of the video, I'll give you a quick multiple choice quiz to make sure that you understood the lesson. Okay, let's get started. The extra situation that I didn't mention in the previous video, which I should have, is that you should use a comma before a non-defining relative pronoun. For example, which, who, where, when, etc. For example, a non-defining relative clause, I plan to visit my brother who lives in Vancouver. I've underlined the non-defining relative clause. You can see I've put a comma before that. Compare that to a defining relative clause where there is no comma. I plan to visit my brother who lives in Vancouver. Both of these sentences are grammatically correct, but they have a different meaning. How do they differ? You need to understand what a defining relative clause is. That sentence means I have more than one brother because the relative clause who lives in Vancouver defines which brother I'm talking about. Therefore, that implies I have more than one brother. And I'm going to visit the one in Vancouver. In contrast, the non-defining relative clause does not tell you which brother I'm talking about. It just gives extra information. Therefore, it implies that I have only one brother. And I plan to visit him. And by the way, he lives in Vancouver. Some examples that I've taken from my model answers, for example, a defining relative clause, encourage people living nearby to take up regular aerobic exercise and other exercises which increase range of motion. That relative clause defines other exercises. I presume most exercises would increase range of motion, but I'm making sure that the reader knows I'm talking about those particular exercises. Compare that to a non-defining relative clause. After this period, they become what are known as smolt, which are approximately 12 to 15 centimeters in length, and eventually make their way out into the open sea. That relative clause doesn't define what kind of smolt I'm talking about. It just gives you extra information about smolt in general. And then I follow that up with another comma because it's the end of the non-defining relative clause, and I continue the sentence. So you could remove that non-defining relative clause and the sentence would still make sense. They become what are known as smolt and eventually make their way out into the open sea. And now some practice questions, multiple choice A or B. Choose the correct sentence. Question 1, the line graph gives information about the percentages of those travellers who chose Australia as their travel destination, or is it, comma, who chose Australia as their travel destination? If you need more time before I move on to the next question, then pause the video. Question 2. The same diseases, including obesity, are on the rise in countries, comma, where the Western diet is gaining popularity. Or is it B, with no comma? Again, pause the video if you need more time. Question 3. In 1995, the time spent on local calls was 72 billion minutes, no comma, which was almost double the total duration of intercity and international calls. Or is there a comma required? One of the drawbacks of such infiltration of foreign products into local markets is the pressure it puts on local businesses, comma, which often can't compete with their international rivals. Or is there no comma required? You can leave your answers in the comments section if you like, and I'll check whether they're correct or not. If you need more expert IELTS tips, I have a free blog on my website at hongkongieltsteacher.com. The link is in the video description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.